We back, baby. UFC 305 is ready. It's tonight. We got ADESANYA versus DuPlessis, and I got my boy JBC back on the UFC show finally. JBC feeling a little bit better?
You know, I am under the weather and have been for a while, but you know, I'm feeling good enough for this card.
Yeah, the card will definitely boost your spirit. Even if you're still not feeling that great, the card will definitely do that for you. A few winners, you'll feel much better after a few winners. So hopefully we can provide some winners for the people here. I know some of the chat members were saying just do the show from the bathroom, JBC. It actually wasn't that. It actually wasn't that. He had a technical difficulty with his computer and then his laptop, but he figured it out and he made it on here.
I just moved and all my shit is in boxes and, you know, I was scrambling.
That's fair. It's fair. Move, everything's in boxes and you're sick on top of it. So you probably haven't like gotten everything yet. So that makes sense. But we got fighting to talk about here. We got a nice little card, UFC 305, 12 fights on this card. Some big favorites on this card too, JBC. Just from an overall perspective, when you've got a bunch of big favorites on a card like this, from a DFS perspective, how do you go about attacking that?
Yeah, I mean, with Nolan and Jenkins at the top, it's kind of tough because, you know, Nolan almost as a floor is like there for like, you know, 100 points as a floor is pretty high, but 9,800 with so many shitty underdogs at the bottom, you know, it's hard to put him in. I'm wondering how much of the field is actually going to get to him versus how much I put in. I mean, I went for, you know, I'm looking at over 50%, and it's still making me really uncomfortable with how much of the shitty guys I'm having to take at the bottom.
Yeah, if you're gonna go that high on like one or like, I mean, obviously Jenkins 9,600 too. That's a pretty good price to pay for you know, Jenkins. I'm not saying he's a world beater, but you know, their opponents aren't very good, obviously, and that's baked into why the lines are so high, because it's not like Tom Nolan is something special either. So I don't want to get too deep into the fights, but it is interesting because I do think those guys both have a pretty high floor, and I'm wondering if one of them is like people get over on one and one of them gets kind of left behind in ownership, and you could get like an ownership discount on one. Do you think it's Tom Nolan just because he's a little higher?
No, I think that people won't take Jenkins. So I think that you may be able to get a little bit of you know, Jenkins may end up in the low 20s, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm gonna like whichever one I can get lower owned, to be honest with you. That's just me. Like if I'm gonna go overweight, but we'll get to those fights and we'll break them down, give you the DFS and the betting, you know, side. Obviously, we'll start with the first fight on the card here. We got Jesus Aguilar, 7,200 on DraftKings versus Stuart Niichol, 9K on DraftKings. First fight in the UFC for Niichol. Just from my, you know, watching him on tape and stuff like that, because I could only find like a few fights to watch. But from what I watched, he is definitely someone who is trying to wrestle / grapple. He will strike, but he prefers to get you up against the cage, and then from there, kind of body lock, get you to the ground, use his grappling, which is, I would say, decent. He doesn't have great control when he gets you down there, though. That's the one thing I noticed, is the control isn't great. But when he gets you down, I think the control isn't great because he's trying to punch you. He's trying to ground and pound. He's not trying to lay and pray. So that's one thing that I just kind of noticed from watching him, is he does have, you know, ground and pound. I think he looks to that first before the submission game. But he is someone who I could see in a matchup like this where Aguilar likes to go for guillotines. My favorite submission, JBC. He loves the guillotine. But when you go for a guillotine against someone who's trying to grapple and get you to the ground, if you don't lock that thing in, you're then stuck on your back, right? A lot of the time. So I think this is an interesting DFS fight because Aguilar's a live dog, in my opinion. But I think Niichol is a pretty solid DFS play with upside because of his grappling and maybe takedowns. the competition worries me for him, who he's fought. Not the best competition. This is probably his best fight. I would say best fighter he's fought in Aguilar, but I think, Niichol finds a way to get it done. I'm just not sure if he finishes Jesus or if it's like a 3-round decision. But maybe if it's a 3-round decision, we could get some takedowns and some grappling. But what do you see here with this fight?
I mean, I see it similarly to you. I think Niichol wins, but I don't. It's hard to see a path to scoring in DFS other than the chain takedowns. He's a similar play up there to Gamrot to me. You need him. You need a lot of things to happen rather than one thing to happen. Is the way that I look at wrestlers a lot of the time. You need him to chain takedowns and then do it again and again and again for multiple rounds. And so, I would much prefer a Jairzinho in this price range just because, what you need out of him, and it's a one-shot knockout, and it's only one thing that has to happen versus like 10.
Yep, 100%. I mean, 100% agree. If you're just putting him up to a guy like Jairzinho in his price range, we all agree. I think Jairzinho is the better play. I love Jairzinho today. We'll get to that one in a sec. But I do think with the unknowns with him, that could maybe a lot of people go to Jairzinho and others in the range that they know more about, and he gets kind of left behind in the ownership. So I think it's a fight that I could just naturally be over on because Aguilar's cheap at 7,200. And I think there is a path for Niichol to score in DFS. So I do like this fight for DFS. There are fights where I'm not going to like both sides of a fight. I think this is a fight where you can get both sides of a fight if you're 150ing just at these price tags and, take advantage of maybe some lower ownership on the favorite.
Yeah. And to speak on the other side, Aguilar is really the cheapest guy who I would say is very live. Like obviously Li Jingliang could win, but Aguilar has a pretty good chance of winning, and he's the cheapest one there, so he has some appeal down there. So I actually have more Aguilar, even though I bet on Niichol.
No, that makes sense, honestly, because for DFS, it's a little different, right? When you're paying up, like you talked about, for so much of a guy of Tom Nolan or you're just going to naturally need some of those guys down there. But we're both on the betting side of Niichol. I think Niichol gets it done. So do you. But he's got to watch the guillotines. That's all I'll say. You got to be careful when you stick your neck in there because I think that's a way that Aguilar could catch him. But I'm sure they've train that watching Aguilar. He loves jumping that guillotine. So, all right, that's the first fight here on the card. Let's go to a fight I really like. And I noticed we're on different sides here, so this will be a fun one. But Song Kenan, 8,700 for Kenan on DraftKings versus Ricky No Chin Glenn, 7,500 for No Chin, as I call him now, coming off of 2 straight losses. Drew Dober, though, was his last loss, and Drew Dober is tough. That's a tough fight for someone like Ricky Glenn, honestly. But one thing I did notice that concerned me was when he fought Drew Dober, he got punished and he got dropped twice. And before he got dropped the first time, I noticed what hurt him before he actually got dropped was just a simple straight left where Dober it didn't even look like he threw it hard. He just caught him and he just kind of stuttered back and then he dropped him. And then it was overhand lefts from Dober the second time he dropped them, and then he finally finished them. But I think Song Kenan is a really bad matchup for someone like Ricky Glenn, who I think Song's tough. I think his problem for DFS is that he kind of waits too long. His volume isn't there, but I think he could just find the knockout against someone like Ricky Glenn, where he's not trying to do it. He's not going in, throwing all these punches, trying to just take his head off, but it's just going to happen organically. It might take a round and a half, but I do like Song here. I think he finds Ricky Glenn's chin at some point and puts his lights out in this spot. So I'm on the Song side. Who you like here, JBC?
I like Rick Glenn a little bit more than Song for DFS and for, as a bet. I think it's a coin flip fight and you're getting plus 170 on Rick Glenn. So, both of these guys, Song's only won once since 2020. Ricky Glenn hasn't won since, 2021. Glenn did have the good fight against Grant Dawson, but I just think both of these guys are probably on the back end. The Song's 34, Glenn's 35. I think that both of their chins are probably dust. And so, that is the logic behind taking Glenn for me is that it's a 50-50 fight and you're getting a dog price on it.
Yeah, I just think with someone like Dawson, it kind of makes sense how that fight went because Dawson's not someone who carries like power, so it's less of a risk. It's kind of like a better matchup for someone like Glenn, where at least Song, we know he carries power. He doesn't throw as much as we'd want him to, but at least he does carry power. So I get what you're saying, though. You think the line should be a little tighter than what it is, which kind of makes some sense. But we're on opposite sides there. I'm assuming you're going to be pretty high on Glenn just because he's cheaper in DFS too, right? You're going to be over on Glenn.
Yeah, right now I'm looking at for Glenn like in the mid-20s, which I guess I have
Okay.
Song in the mid, so it's about the same. I'm close to 50% ownership on the fight and both of the guys in the mid-20s.
All right. Yeah. So not a bad fight. I think the target again, like if you're on the Song side, you got to be rooting for a knockout because if this goes to decision, he's not going to score what you want at 8,700. But if you're on the Glenn side, he doesn't necessarily need a finish at that price tag, depending on what other dogs win and score, right, JBC?
Yeah, no, I think that among the dogs, in that range, he's got the best knockout odds other than Tuivasa. So that entire group, Aguilar included, which we just talked about, you kind of have to play them because the four guys at the bottom are probably all going to fucking lose. And so, you kind of got to mix it up.
Yep, I agree. Definitely want to mix it up if you're MMEing here on this slate. Let's go to your guy, Tommy Nolan. Tom Nolan, 9,800 on DraftKings versus Alex Reyes, brother of Dominic Reyes, right? That's the brother of Dominic Reyes. 2 fights in the UFC. Fought Charlie Campbell, I think, the last time out. Got finished early in that fight. He is 6,400. That's the cheapest fighter on the card. That's the cheapest fighter I've seen in a while. JVC, 6,400. Massive line here. I think it's the biggest favorite on the card, right? Is Tom Nolan. I just want to start with that. Like from a betting perspective, you're not betting Tom Nolan, right? You're just, I would assume.
No, I'm not touching it. There is some merit to the thought process that nobody should be higher than plus 400 or 500 in an MMA fight. So I can understand why, you could, rationalize betting on Alex Reyes at 750. I'm not going to do it, but I can certainly see the logic for it. I don't think there's any value in betting on Tom Nolan. I'm just going to leave it alone.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. From the DFS side is more, I think, where we can dive in. And you already kind of talked about it that you want to be overweight on Tom Nolan. And it makes sense. It makes sense here. I do think that he finds a finish at some point. And, the question for me is just going to be how long can Alex Reyes kind of hang in there compared to like a Herbert Burns, right? Because I'm kind of putting Jenkins and Tom Nolan in the same spot. It's like, okay, which one can hang in there and survive? And I know for a fact Herbert Burns has about 1 round of cardio in him, and then he's dead. Like he can't do it anymore. Alex Reyes, we haven't seen a lot of him. So, we've only seen that one fight. Outside of that, he fought like 6 years ago. So I don't really have much to go with on him. I think I'm going to be higher on Jenkins for me personally, but I can't argue with Tom Nolan or Jack Jenkins here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a situation where the first, if he finishes in the first round, he might not be optimal, but there's a high likelihood to finish in the first minute, and then if he and Jenkins both get big scores, you end up in a weird situation where you're going to have like a losing person in the optimal at the bottom, Jingliang or Dan Hooker, like if they score like 40 or 50 in a loss, like you get some weird builds if they both like go crazy. So but the likelihood of that happening is about 50-50 to me in terms of like that a loser ends up in the winner if they both get like 120 130 points. So I'm going about 50% on Tom Nolan. and just gonna bank the points and hope that some dogs actually come through.
So that's interesting. If you put both those guys in a lineup and then you put the main event fight, I think most people are probably going to pick one of those guys. So I threw in Dricus. You still got 75, just over 75 per spot for your last 3 fights, which I agree with you. Probably one of them's a loser, most likely. But in the scenario where they finish quick, which is possible, I think it's more possible that Tom Nolan honestly finishes Alex Reyes quicker than Jenkins, just because, and we'll get to the Jenkins fight in a sec, but Jenkins likes to kind of hang around the outside, leg kick. Herbert Burns maybe can survive a round. Like we said, he has like a round of cardio. So, maybe Tom Nolan is probably the better DFS play, just because maybe the quicker upside to finish, I guess, the more we kind of talk through it and everything like that. But I think I have an idea of how Jack Jenkins wins. So let's get to that fight here. Jack Jenkins, Herbert Burns, 6,600, Jenkins, 9,600. The second biggest favorite on the card and the second highest priced on DraftKings, Jack Jenkins. I think he's not going to want to get near Herbert Burns, because we all know Herbert Burns' one path is like the grappling, right? If he gets like attached to you in any way and he can find any way to get on you and try and get some type of submission, because he's just an unreal grappler, that's his path. If you're like betting Herbert Burns, I would bet him by submission, because I don't see any other way. If this is a stand-up fight for 3 rounds, Jack Jenkins is going to piece it, and I don't even think Jack Jenkins is good. I hated him against Chepe. I told everyone Chepe was going to beat him up. We actually saw that Chepe is actually really good, too, after that last fight. Dude's just a dog. But the one thing Jack Jenkins has, he has crazy good low leg kicks. And when you fight a grappler who you don't want to get near you because you don't want to engage in the grappling, what do you want to do? You want to move around on the outside. You want to hit him with leg kicks because it's easier than getting in close and throwing punches, right? Keep him at distance. And I think he just friggin' chips away at that leg. And by the end of the first round, he's limping over to the stool, JBC. And then that second round is where you get the quit of Herbert Burns, and he finds a finish there. So I do think it's a leg kick parade for someone like Jack Jenkins. That makes the most sense to me as a strategy just coming in. But I like him. I like him to finish, but it's like minus 295 by KO. I'm not betting that, but I do think he wins, and he wins pretty easily. There was some line movement though on this. I don't know if you saw that. I saw it went down from like 800 to 550.
Oh, it just did? I haven't checked in.
Someone posted that in our chat. I could be totally wrong, but someone.
Yeah, no,
I forget who posted it.
I think it's minus 575. So heavy on Burns the last like 30 minutes or so. But it had come up originally, like Jenkins opened at 535, and then it went up to 880, and now it's back down to 575. So I mean, it's hard to read into that too much when it's gone both ways.
As a season bettor, like when you see stuff like that, do you just when it goes both ways, do you just say, nah, I'm not really buying in too much?
Well, I think that the because obviously the limits are a lot higher today, so the movement on Burns is a little more substantial, but also it doesn't take a whole lot of money to move a big dog that much. So
Yep.
Herbert 550 down to 425 is, I would value it more if like a minus 115 went to minus 125 than what I just saw out of Herbert Burns, like in the terms of the line movement.
Yep. Makes sense. We got Prez in the house. Oh, big Prez in the house. Big T's in here. JBC talking about my builds. I don't know, what builds were you talking about, JBC? Oh, probably the double stud builds. Probably is what you're talking. I know for a fact Big T is gonna jam those big favorites. I know one thing about Big T. He's definitely jamming those big favorites. So he's gonna have all those 2 combos and stuff like that, which makes sense. Honestly, it does make sense on a card like this. Because we've seen it. We've seen it with losers in the optimal, like JVC said too. So I can see it happening here. But Big T coming off back-to-back MMA shippers. Can he go 3 in a row? JBC, what do you think? What are the odds Big T ships 3 in a row?
Well, if he fucking play it, like, I had that thought in my mind where if you lock Nolan and Jenkins and then just run like every single combo, like it's there is some fucking merit to that. So like I could definitely see how that works.
Yeah, because honestly, you're literally just going to be at that point, you're just going to be sweating like, okay, does Carlos Prates and all the other 9K, upper 9K guys and upper 8K guys, my guys just got to outscore them, even if it's by a half a point. Don't like it doesn't matter. You're just trying to outscore those guys. And then at the end of the day, if that happens, you're in a good spot. You could still lose, but you're in a better spot, right, JBC? If both those guys go out and finish in the first round, they get you between what, like 99 and like 110, something like that.
Yeah, and so like having that as a floor, it's like, if you're MMAing the big $25, so you're risking 37.50. If you lock them both, I think that it's very hard for you to lose more than like 60% of your money. Like you're not gonna just get out. So it has the highest ceiling and the highest floor. So I don't hate strategy.
I like it. We got a cash question in there. I won't touch that question until we go through this fight because it actually pertains to this fight here. So let's go to the Casey O'Neill, Luana Santos fight. Casey O'Neill 7,600 on DraftKings. Luana Santos 8,600 on DraftKings here. And JVC, I'll be honest, this was the fight out of all the fights on the card. This was the fight I went back and forth on the most because I can see both sides of this fight, and I can picture how both girls win the fight. I think that Luana Santos, timeout. I was going to go into my whole, how both girls are going to win, but the man, Big T in the house here, coming off of back-to-back MMA shippers, and for some reason he puts himself on the bottom, even though he's won back-to-back MMA shippers and just owned my ass. I should be on the bottom right now, Big T. But
I haven't seen JBC in too long. I had to come on and talk to him here for a minute.
Yeah, now that I can actually speak out loud, I didn't have a voice.
Are you feeling better?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting there. It's it's a son of a bitch. Fucking COVID it fucks you up, and then you get pneumonia afterwards. It's terrible.
I know a ton of people that have gotten
you had pneumonia?
It was awful. I mean, I'm still coughing a little bit, but I'm mostly okay now. The biggest change currently that's going on is like, we're moving. I like lift a box up and walk up the stairs, and I like have to lie down because I'm so my lungs are just fucked.
That's the worst too, when you just don't feel right.
I just like
after the first time you got COVID, JVC, were your lungs just like done after that? Because I know people who are like their lungs were never right after they got COVID. I knew people that were fine too, but some people like still say they're messed up.
Yeah, my endurance after having COVID is so many times is just the worst. I could not run like a quarter mile.
Well, damn, good thing you're not betting anyone to run a mile race or anything like that anymore. I don't know if you guys remember that bet, but good thing you're not betting any more mile races.
Whenever he gets healthy, I'm still holding him up to his mile run.
I was gonna say I don't think he's doing it right now. You might have to hold on to that bet. But Big T, anything? You're in the chat talking. I don't know if I should go to this.
Well, I was coming on too because JBC was bringing a good point up as I was talking. Like one of the things I always do about maybe not locking, but going super overweight on both. No one does it. Like, and just say it doesn't go perfect and someone in the 9Ks outscores them, which I mean, probably happens. Let's be honest. Maybe one of them. You're still like in good shape to make money, which is our ultimate goal. Or like JBC said, even if it goes wrong, you get 60, 70% back. And like, it is what it is, but you just give yourself so many more combos. And it's been the winner so much this year. Like, no one ever plays two studs. They always play one and then go down. And so, like, everyone's going to play Nolan today. Jenkins, just like JBC said, is going to end up 20%. And I mean, the dude's minus 400 to finish, and he's going to be 20% owned. So I think everyone just kind of splits them and plays one. So if you play both, you're just different. And you know what? If they both score 100 to 110, I mean, it might not be the total optimal, but man, you're in good shape. You're just in good shape to do good.
I think that people, especially if they're building one lineup, do not want to take somebody that they think is going to lose. So
Correct.
Jingliang, they're not going to take Dan Hooker. They're probably not going to take Aguilar. You know, and so you have to take those guys if you want to take the two guys at the top. And so when you have people not wanting to take somebody they think is going to lose, you end up with really, really low ownership on one of the top two guys, and that's why we're going to get Jenkins at 20%.
And just because, like you guys literally said it perfect, that's why I wanted to hop on. Like, if Hooker gets 30 points, like, he's got a decent chance. And I don't think Hooker's going to get finished. I think he'll hang in there. I know you guys aren't at that fight, so I'm messing up.
The over's like minus 300. The over's like minus 300.
Like, I don't think Hooker wins, but he might not have to. And it's another card that's always happens on the pay-per-views. I swear it does. And it's one of the reasons I think I do better on pay-per-view cards. It's tough to find dogs. I mean, you look at these dogs, they're tough. I mean, none of these dogs look great. It could easily be another card where dogs just don't win. And then these 30-point like showings are huge.
Well, I think that you know, Dana, especially on the big pay-per-views, he likes to schedule fights that he clearly knows are going to end in a knockout to get the crowd hyped up. You know, it's like every time Bo Nickel fights, he'll put him as the first pay-per-view because he knows that a finish is going to happen. People will be excited. And so, you know, I think that really is a thing with the pay-per-views.
That's why, what was the last pay-per-view when he was like pissed because there was like 8 decisions in a row or something, and he went to the presser and he was like, no more bonuses, 8 decisions in a row, blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, he was so mad because there was just so many decisions. And that's another point that I forgot to bring up. JBC, you're probably into this totally, but do you think that, I'm not saying Dana, but maybe Dana and some of the other people in the UFC are telling some of these fighters like, hey, when you go out, you know, forget the takedowns. We want excitement, like knockouts. Like, do you think that's happening behind the scenes?
I don't know if they're saying it explicitly, but the fighters should get the fucking point now that that's what they want. If Dana's going on a rant about taking away the bonuses and this, that, and the other, you know, like people are gonna start going out on their shield more. I think it matters a lot. You know, well, if you're like a fucking, you know, a middling guy, if you're fucking, you know, Gamrot and you're trying to fight for the title, I don't think he's do it. But if you're fucking, you know, Walter Walker and your path to winning is grappling, like, that shit ain't gonna play. Like, you're gonna get fucking cut even if you win. So I think that for fights like that, you might see guys who might otherwise grapple come out and start swinging.
That's what I'm talking about. Because you're right. Like Gamrot, he's wrestle. I wrestle. That's what I wrestle. Like, he's not messing around. He's fine.
You know, that chain wrestling, you know, the Khabib, the Dagestanis, that's not boring because they're fucking doing it over and over and over and over. It's not like just fucking get them down and lay there.
Yeah, and it's constant. Like, they're doing stuff. It's different than just the lay and pray shit. But you'll even see it. Like, watch the Dana White Contender Series going forward. I guarantee you, all those fighters come in and they just try and knock each other's heads off. And there's not as much because they know what Dana's looking for. You're not getting a contract, and so he's trying to do it there because he's seeing that a lot of these fighters are coming from there now, and like, he wants to put it in their heads, like, hey, this is what we're looking for. To get a contract to fight in the UFC, you got to be fun and exciting. The crowd's got to want to see you fight. I got to want to see you. Like, this is how you do it. You got to go out and try and knock each other out. So I just thought it was an interesting point to bring up here. But Big T, you want to stay on and talk some of these fights with us? Yeah. Give the people some winners.
I got to hang out with JBC when I can.
All right, well, let's do it. We were on the Luana Santos, Casey O'Neill fight. And I was telling you guys, I said, this is the fight I went back and forth on the most because I concede past to both these girls winning. I think the key for Casey O'Neill, if you're on the Casey O'Neill side, is Luana Santos does not like pressure. She does not like constant in-your-face pressure, which is what Casey O'Neill's going to bring. If you watch Luana Santos' first fight in the UFC, she won, and she won by KO. But the very beginning of that fight was super telling because the girl ran out into the middle of the cage and just ran in her face, and she didn't like it. Luana Santos likes to kind of dictate that. She likes to move around on the outside and kind of dictate the pace of the fight. I think she's someone who's gotten better with her striking. She ultimately wants to grapple. She wants to get you down. She has those judo throws. And I do think if Casey O'Neill gets kind of caught with like an overhand right or something, and she panic wrestles like she did against Lipsky, then she'll be in trouble because it'll go right into Luana Santos' strength, which is grappling. So I could see that happening. If that happens, then I obviously think Luana Santos could win the fight. But if this goes to a 3-round decision, or if this goes like over 2.5 rounds, and Casey O'Neill is just pressuring in her face, I honestly think Casey O'Neill could find a late finish, like a 3rd-round finish on Luana Santos, just because of that pressure. You watch the Maya fight. She was getting her ass whooped by Maya, and she just stayed in her face. I mean, she kept getting punched in the face, and she's very hittable, which is one thing that's not good, obviously. She's extremely hittable, but she'll throw back. And even in that 3rd round, when she was clearly losing, she was fighting back and still, connecting with some good shots. It was just Maya had the better shots throughout the 3 rounds. But I do think it's a good DFS fight because I could see both girls being able to finish. I think Luana Santos could finish her with the grappling in a submission. I think if Casey O'Neill wins, though, I could see her finishing Luana Santos late with just volume. It might not be one shot, but just a combination of volume and pressure, and it just melts Luana Santos. So this is a really good fight. I'm still going back and forth on who I want to bet, JBC. So maybe you can change my mind one way or another.
Well, I mean, we spoke on this logic for the Rick Glenn fight, and you just talked about how, you can see a pathway for each woman to win this fight. Well, one of them you're getting plus money. So I really like Casey O'Neill as at 120 on DK right now. I think that it's a coin flip fight, and with Casey O'Neill with her pressure could easily win. So I'm betting pretty big on her.
Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. It's coin flippy. You get the plus money. I do think it's like a coin flippy fight. So I agree with you there. Big T, you want to break the tire on this fight or talk about it from a DFS side? What you want to do with it? Because you got Casey O'Neill who's pretty cheap, and she could throw volume out there.
Yeah, so one of the things I love about UFC is, and JBC helped me with this too, like when he first started at Run Pure, like it's okay to go on both ways too. I take stands too in certain spots, but this fight, for example, is just a great DFS fight. Both of these fighters could easily be optimal. You got to take stabs on dogs like we keep talking about. You look when O'Neill wins, she scores 1,000,000 points. So she's obviously a really good DFS play and a short dog. So you can obviously get in there on the betting side. So I kind of come in. It sounds like a hedge, but I'm kind of just in between on what I think because I like both. I want a ton of both of these. And with the way the pricing sets up, I think Santos is going to get a decent amount of ownership. But, man, if she wins, she's going to put a score up too. So I think this is a great fight. If I had to pick, I think I'm on O'Neill just because I like the price. DFS and betting, I like the price. I'm not like crazy convicted on it though. I think both are pretty good, and I do. What did our boy Kay Fallick Burner say? She can get it. I'd give it to old Santos too. I'd give her a shot at the belt for sure. I might not win, but I'd give her a shot at the belt.
You'd give her a shot at you give her Casey O'Neill.
I'd give her a solid about 30 seconds. I'd give it to her.
Would you give Casey O'Neill 30 seconds? I think
you'd give it to both of them. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I can handle both at once, but I'd go one and then give me about a day rest, and I'd go back after the other.
A day rest. There you go. Yeah, you got to get the day rest in.
Give her the pile driver in Westlake. Yeah, I'd give her the pile driver, or let her give me the pile driver. One of the two.
I was gonna say, I mean, both girls are pretty cute. So I mean,
I'm looking at the picture right now. They got some talents there.
They got talent for sure. So plus 225. If you want to bet this, I think this is interesting. Casey O'Neill by KO, TKO, or Luana Santos to win by submission. If you think this fight finishes one way or another, I think that's an interesting bet. It's plus 225 right now on DraftKings. Obviously, you know, if you think that one of those two things happen, I think it's a pretty good, fun bet if you're kind of like me and going back and forth. I'm going to lean, though, the Casey O'Neill side. I think the short notice for Santos, too, maybe a little bit in Casey O'Neill.
OnlyFans, though. She's got the proper training on the OF.
Well, who has only?
Well,
in the chat, they were saying Santos.
Ooh.
So she's
I didn't know that.
in shape if she's on there.
Yeah. Well, my buddies has a theory that all the fighters, when they get OnlyFans training as much because they're focused on their OnlyFans.
And they're probably making way more too.
They're making so much money. That's why.
And they make way more money, so they're less and just fade all the girls that are having OnlyFans.
It's a good point.
Yep.
It's a good observation.
Someone said that sold the fight. There we go. I don't know if it sold it for Luana Santos or Casey O'Neill. I don't know.
What'd this dude ask? What'd you ask?
Jim. Yes, I got you, Jim. So Jim's question was a cash question. He said 2v2, Niichol and O'Neill versus Jenkins and Hooker.
I
so
mean,
that's
Niichol,
kind of
you're not playing Niichol in cash. So whatever the other one was.
It was Jenkins and Hooker, which is kind of what you were talking about.
I mean, in cash, JBC knows probably more than me about cash. But if you're not playing those two big favorites in cash, I don't know what to tell you. You have to.
For cash, you start with Nolan and Jenkins. Then you go with ADESANYA and Reyes, and then you build from there.
Does it fit if you play the two? What's the price if you played?
So if you played both main event fighters plus. And we're talking cash. I wouldn't do this in
just
GPP,
cash,
just me personally. But and then you play Jack Jenkins. You're talking 7,200 for your last two spots on DraftKings. Right. So that's doable.
Hook. You probably go with either Jingliang or Hooker with Cara France.
Yep, that's the cash for sure, right there.
You
have to play those two favorites. You have to play the main event. It only
like JBC said, you gotta, or Tony, I forget who it was, but maybe it was both of them. You gotta play a loser, like someone you probably think loses.
Cash, it doesn't matter.
But the best chance of putting up points.
Fucking Herbert Burns.
Yeah,
play anybody. It's especially tonight because you got two guaranteed plus. You got four. How often do you have four guaranteed cash locks? Not often. You only got to pick two fighters in cash tonight.
Yeah, it's kind of a stupid slate for cash. Everybody's probably going to do
people will still not play those two though. I might actually play cash for the first time just because of that.
It's like it's the profitable fucking cash games is single game NFL when the lineup is so fucking obvious.
People still mess it up.
Yeah.
I mean,
God, if I see Tony playing cash tonight, that'll be the end. That'll be the ultimate thing. I thought that best ball, Tony, would be like that, the end all be all a couple years. Now, if I start seeing you play MMA cash, it'll just be.
I was half joking, but I do think cash is easy tonight if you do that.
Yeah. Jim says MMA cash is easy anyway. So there you go. There's the answer, though. We're going with the big fave and a dog. So that's the answer to your question. Let's go to the next fight here. We got Josh Kibal, 8,500 on DraftKings against Ricardo Ramos, 7,700 on DraftKings here. And Josh Kibal, we kind of know what he is. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of him. He's tough. I think that Ramos has the upside in DFS, and I think Ramos wins this fight as the dog, slight dog. I think he's plus 105 right now on DraftKings, but I do like him here as a bet. I do think he could find a finish at some point. I think he's got some talent, obviously coming off his last two losses by submission against Erosa and Jourdain. But I think this is a bounce back fight, and I think someone goes out. So I think it's a good DFS fight here, and I like Ramos' price at 7,700. So that's where I'm leaning. JBC, what do you got in this fight?
Ramos, we're getting a gift price on Ramos because he fucking got guillotined twice in a row. It's not
Yeah.
like, and a guillotine is kind of like, I don't want to say it's lucky if you win by guillotine, but it's kind of lucky if you win by guillotine. So he was unlucky to lose twice in a row by guillotine first round. Like, so the price is kind of down on him. I think he's a much better fighter than Kibal. I'm really heavy on him. I bet him pretty fucking heavy at plus 115 like 3 hours ago. Now he's down to plus 105. I think that there's a decent chance that he closes as a favorite.
I think this is one of those fights that right before the fight, JVC, like right before the fight before it or whatever, we start to see that line just completely flip. And he goes from plus 105 to minus 115 or something like that. Just like crazy flips like that. So I agree with you. I think he should be the favorite, and I could see it happening. I like it. Tony, what do you got here with this fight?
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with the fact that I think Ramos is the better fighter, and the price, everything. The flip side, though, is I don't think anyone's going to play Kibal in DFS just because of the way the price is. He's right between Santos and Izzy. You got the big favorites up top. I mean, 500 is tough for a guy that's only minus 120, and like you guys, close to a pick 'em. And he's a shitty fighter too. No one really likes him. He might end up literally like 8% owned or something, like super low owned. So that's kind of where I went back when my first thing I said coming on was I've learned to not take as hard of stances in MMA. So even though I hate Kibal, I want to get like 10 to 20% in my builds, just because when he somehow pops it off and scores 120 or something, you're just so far ahead of the optimal because no one has that particular tier that I just love it. But yeah, in general, just to take a stand, I mean, I'm on Ramos. I like Ramos just like you guys. I think it's great fight for DFS too, as far as Ramos, because you need dogs. I mean, any dog that wins in that price, you have to like. So I know on the site right now, we even have Kibal 15%, Ramos 22. I think it's more dramatic than that. I think Ramos is like in the low 30s. I think Kibal is closer to 10. So just based on that, it's only a little price difference between the two. I think Kibal is a pretty sneaky DFS play, even though I don't like it. So some people just watching these shows for the first time, they're like, how can he be over on Kibal even though he thinks he sucks? Well, that's why, just to make you a little unique on a pretty obvious slate. Like maybe you play the two favorites with Kibal. I mean, that's an interesting build, and then go down. Stuff like that is where it does. But just to make a pick on the fight, I like Ramos.
Yeah, for sure. From a unique perspective, it was kind of like when we were talking about Rosenstruik versus Niichol. And it's like everyone's going to play Rosenstruik, I think, over Niichol. So like you can get different and play Niichol over Rosenstruik in
Aguilar.
GPPs and stuff like that. Who? I was talking about the 9K 8,900.
My bad.
Yeah, the price range. We were just talking about like the price ranges, and most of us would prefer Rosenstruik just because of his upside and everything like that. But from an ownership standpoint,
one of the first UFC fights I think I watched, or that I remember, Rosenstruik was fighting Ngannou, and I had Rosenstruik at Rapier, and we saw Ngannou come out, and we're like, oh fuck,
that was peak COVID.
Destroyed.
That was peak COVID right there. It was like June or something like that, or May, I can't remember. And Rosenstruik just got killed.
He made it like
just absolutely killed.
And he was in the carpet.
We were like, yeah, we were on the wrong horse there for sure. So that was when you're that's when you started the profile, right? You had to see both fighters. You had to visually see both fighters.
I wasn't winning that fight. I'll tell you that much.
All right, let's get to the one of the big boy fights here. We've got Junior, not Justin, Junior Taffa here, 8,200.
The better one, the other one.
Justin supposedly the better one. Well, Justin is the better one, but
is it Junior young?
I think he's younger. Yes, I think he's younger.
Australian too, right?
Got two brothers of better UFC fighters fighting each other here.
The other dude's a brother too.
Yeah, he's Johnny Walker's brother.
It's Johnny Walker's brother.
Yeah, that's just
So the two shittier brothers fight?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
definitely what the matchmaker was thinking when he did
They
this.
should do like a tag
100%.
team match like WWE and line them both up, and then once they win, they can tag the other one in.
What if one gets knocked out? Do you have to fight 2-on-1?
You lose
Like
if one gets knocked out. Like it should be
Oh,
like
okay.
NBA Jam rules. Like at the end of the round, you can like sub in the guy that's less fatigued.
Have you guys seen those videos of like when they have like the two small guys against like one heavyweight and they're just like going crazy, like trying to kick this heavyweight and punch him and stuff, and he's just like throwing them around, and those are fun videos. I love those videos. But all right, we got the brothers, the fight of the brothers here, Walter Walker against Junior Taffa, 8,200 8K. We all know that these fights for DFS, one, they're big boys, and two, they're priced 8K and 8,200. People are going to gravitate to these fights here. One probably could go out easily. Junior Taffa is the one who wants to stand up, wants to keep it standing, and has more of the power. Walter Walker is more of a wrestler. Even though he's a big boy, he's a wrestler. The problem with Walter Walker is he doesn't have cardio. He doesn't have that much cardio. Like he gassed after a very short amount of time last time out. But I will say this, him on the scales this fight as opposed to last fight, he looks completely different. I don't know if you guys saw him on the scales, but he looks like in shape. Like he did not look like fat and overweight. He looked in very good shape. And Junior Taffa on his back gives you nothing. So I think it's one of those fights where like if Walter Walker does get him on his back, he can have success. If this fight stays standing, though, I think Junior Taffa finds a finish in the first like 2.5 minutes. So it's one of those fights. Kind of pick your horse here. I think it's gonna be a pretty good fight for DFS if Junior Taffa wins for sure, because I think it's by KO. If Walter Walker wins, he could win a boring decision, I guess, but he could also get takedowns. So all that to say, I'm kind of split on this fight. I want to go with Walter Walker just because I know if Junior Taffa gets taken down once, it could be over. That's how much he gives off of his back. And I do think this dude's going to like dive at legs. The problem is when he dives for a leg or something like that, he could just get cracked. But I'll lean the Walter Walker side. JBC, what side are you on?
I'm in big on Taffa. Just touch back on what we talked about earlier, how, the rumors going around that people need to fucking stand and bang. As I said, Walker, if he wrestles and it's boring and he wins, he's still getting fucking cut. So I don't know that he's going to go that route, even though it's his only route to winning. And so getting Taffa at, minus 118 or whatever it is right now kind of seems like a gift in that scenario. So I'm going in on Taffa.
All right, that makes sense. It's a good point too. I forgot about Usman taking Taffa down. I just remember him on his back, and he gives you absolutely nothing. But I do think it's one of those like close fights. Big T, break the tie. I think I know where you're going, but break the tie.
It's one of my favorite fights on the card, surprisingly. But for the first time, I got to disagree with JBC. I think he gets him to the carpet, and I just think the only thing that worries me is the Australian, I think, and that home ice advantage a little bit towards Taffa. And don't get me wrong, I know I keep sounding like I'm hedging. I'm going to have plenty of Taffa too. Like you have to be on these guys. Mid-range price, both have upside. You got the knockout upside with Taffa. You got the wrestling upside the other way. But as far as a pick, I really like Walker a lot in this fight. I think he gets him down early and often. I thought he looked pretty good. I actually watched the weigh-ins I don't usually watch that, but I was bored last night and watched. He looked good to me. I think he's going to just destroy him. I think you get 4 or 5 takedowns. I don't know. Part of me hopes he doesn't finish him and just keeps taking him down type thing. I don't know if he finishes him, but I love the upside for 8K, and I think he wins as a, plus 105 dog or something right now.
Here's the thing, Tony. I'll just say this, and I know Walter Walker's control isn't amazing, but if Junior Taffa gets taken down, I think he's there the rest of the round pretty much. So I think it's one of those fights where like you're just rooting for Walter Walker to get an early takedown, and then it's just control and maybe some ground and pound. Because if that dude gets taken down, he's staying down for a while, I think.
And I hate to just keep saying the same thing that you guys said and then we said, but like if you take those two favorites up top, you can, even if you're building two teams, you can build one of these guys on each team. Taffa wins, he's knocking his ass out. He's going to be in the winner. If the other dude gets takedowns, he's got a good chance of being in the winner. This is not hedging. I mean, we're still giving you our picks who we think wins, but good strategy. Play the two favorites, mix guys like this in and out. That's how it works to me. So I just think it's very clear cut. Taffa could easily knock his ass out. The other dude could get 6, 7, 8 takedowns. A great fight for DFS.
John got Big Hedge. Big Hedge is to be clear for Big Hedge. He is building 150. So when you build 150,
I have fades on there too. I always fade 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah, but I'm just saying when you build 150, you don't want to do like what I do and like fade half the cards.
And I used to do that shit, but JBC taught me. He said you can't fade everyone. You can only fade 3 or 4 tops, and that's what I've done. Fade 3 or 4 each week. I still like to have a few stands, and it's worked good for me. I mean, MMA's been good to me the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think if you're playing less teams, then okay, you want to fade more guys if you're playing less teams. But if you're playing 150, then you kind of gotta have a fight where you're on both sides.
Like fights like this, you can't. Like I used to still like a few years ago, I would love this fight, and I would just fade Taffa totally. Then when he knocks him out in the first round, you just literally stone dead. It's just stupid. Like you can't leave yourself no outs when a dude has clear paths to victory.
Yep, 100%. Walker did come in heavier too, which I thought was surprising because he looked so like slim, and he was still heavier than Junior by like I think 8 pounds on the scale. I think was the difference. So yeah, Drake put 450 on Izzy. Yeah, but then I saw something about some donkey putting heavy money on.
Why do people always care who these guys put money? I don't get it.
I think because whenever these guys put money like that, they lose, and then everyone's like, "Oh,
Drake, like that's like you putting $5 on Izzy." So like, what does it matter if he put 450K on him?
I'd rather watch Drake than know who he's betting on.
Yeah, I'd rather anything. I'd rather Drake sit on his couch than who he's betting. Like, I can't care less who he's freaking betting.
Yeah, well, all right, let's get to the next fight on the card. We got Jingliang, 7K for Jingliang on DraftKings versus Carlos Prates, 9,200 on DraftKings here. Carlos Prates, I'll just throw this out there to start, but this dude's a stud. This is like what the UFC wants is this guy. This guy, he's got pretty much the entire like stand-up package that you want. He wants to make fights fun. He kind of his pace isn't great. Like the volume he throws out there is not like amazing, but it's because everything he does is like big actions. He's trying to put you out. He's trying to find like a highlight knockout. So I do think it's one of those fights where like, you know, Jingliang's tough. You know, I could see him lasting longer, but I can't go against Prates. I just think he's too good. He's just got too much talent, I think. So I'm going the 9,200. I think he could find like a late finish, maybe. Jingliang is tough. So maybe it goes to decision, but I'm Prates all day. For DFS, though, I do think this is a dog you could get behind in Liang for sure. But JBC, what do you got here in this fight?
Well, one thing about Prates that I love is that he chain smokes cigarettes.
I knew you were going to say something about it.
And then like, we were at the last fight for Carlos Prates, and he won with like that sick. He was fighting, I think, Radke, and we're sitting next to Radke's mother and aunt, and he knocked Radke out in like the most vicious possible manner, and they started like crying. It was so fucked up.
Wasn't it like a knee? Wasn't it a knee that he did it with? It was like one of those knees where you like switched it too. He like threw them both, but like one went up and then the other one just caught him flush or something like that.
It's out. He talked about how he wanted to fight on this card because he has a daughter in Australia. So, you know, I think Carlos Prates is gonna put on for his daughter. I think, and you know what, Li Jingliang is definitely a willing dance partner, and I think they're gonna go out there and just fucking swing.
So it's a good DFS fight if that's the case, for sure. I agree with you, though. Yeah, his daughter, I think he said it was 4. His daughter was 4 or something like that. First time ever seeing him fight like in person. So I'm sure that's going to bring out something special for him, and we'll probably see something fun. I agree with you. So Tony, what do you think here with this fight? Is it a good DFS fight like me and JBC think?
Yeah, he fought when we were in Louisville, so saw him up close and personal. I do totally agree, and it's where the card gets interesting though, because you got those top couple guys, and the bottom ones just I don't see winning. So it's a matter of how much they can score on the bottom, and I'm definitely not playing the two like low dogs just because I just don't need to. So I'm going to have to get some of both sides, but I totally agree with you guys. I mean, he's a beast. Like JBC said earlier too, Dana sets this stuff up. He's not losing. So it's just a matter, does he knock him out? Does it end? Does it go to the distance? Because if it goes to distance, you should have a lot of the dog just because it'll score good enough. So that's the strategy of this card, but can't disagree with you guys on the outcome of the fight.
So how are you guys ranking? Because we're getting kind of close to. We still got to obviously talk about two more like studs on the card here. But like if you're just looking at the 9K range, right? Just the 9K range. We'll throw Gamrot in there. How are you ranking the 9K range as it sits right now, all the way down the board? JBC, if you just for DFS, how are you ranking those guys?
I think it's clearly Nolan, Jenkins, Prates, and then the other two are interchangeable.
Okay, so you got Prates third. Tony, I'm assuming you're similar with Nolan, Jenkins, but where else do you go from there?
I think it's 1,000,000% Nolan, Jenkins, Prates, and then the other two. Right now, all the ownership projections I've seen have all five of these dudes. Well, Niichol a little bit less, but closer than I think it should be. If these ownerships are actually correct and all these guys are somewhere around 30, I mean, that just makes me want to play those two studs even that much more. So I think those three, I think Prates is almost as good a play as the top two. Man, you see minus 750 to close, minus 400 to close, and then all the way down to minus 125 here to close. It has to be 1, 2, 3 for me. And Gamrot's good, but he could easily win a low scoring fight type thing too. To me, it's clear as day. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think Niichol is going to be the guy that starts to fall in ownership. Either him or Jenkins. One of those
Niichol
two. I
has to fall, and Jenkins. Those are the two that are going to fall to me.
Yeah, if you're looking like ownership wise, I think those are the guys you gravitate to, because I think from an ownership standpoint, those are the two that probably fall in the cracks if we're just talking about the top tier. Studs,
and to talk different strategies too, because a lot of our opinion.
Let's go to
a lot of our people only play a couple teams. I think you're better off not doing what we're saying. If you're playing a couple, play Niichol, play Gamrot, play Prates, just because it's leverage off of some of that stuff. And yeah, it's not technically as good of a build to me, but once Niichol goes out and scores 120 right away, you already, all those builds with those other guys are in trouble. So that's where it gets interesting to me.
Got Tyler in chat. Niichol is going to break the slate 5 minutes into the slate. There you go. Raise a sharp. Shout out to everyone. What's up? What's going on?
I think Nicole's going to break the slate right away by losing.
Oh, you got him losing. We didn't even get to you. I
actually think Aguilar's in the pricing, you still need like JBC said, I think you need one of the bottom four, just the way the pricing kind of lines up for what I like. But I think Aguilar is has so much better of a chance to win than those bottom four.
I mean, he's definitely the best fighter Nicolet's going to face, overall in his career. So, but Aguilar's wins are, I mean
again, you got to find dogs.
He beat Shannon Ross, who might have been the worst UFC fighter I've ever seen fight, ever in the UFC. He knocked him out in 3 seconds with an overhand. It's the funniest thing ever. I still remember I was sitting with my brother, and I still remember I was like, dude, this guy's going to win in the first 30 seconds. And he knocked literally 2 punches in, and the dude was out. And I was like, see, I told you so. It's just the guy had no chin whatsoever, Shannon Ross. And then Mendonca was a big letdown for the UFC. Thought he had skills, and he was just not good. His loss, though, is to Tyra, who's obviously really friggin' good. So we can't count that against them. But I think this is an interesting fight for both these guys. But let's go to, we got 4 more fights left on the card. We got the other big boy fight that we got to talk about. And I know where JBC stands because we're on the same side here with Jairzinho Rosenstruik, 8,900 on DraftKings versus Tai Tuivasa. 7,300 on DraftKings for Tai Tuivasa. And I just think Rosenstruik is just the better overall technical fighter. And we saw it in the last fight where it was just like, he had good cardio, he had good pace, he just out-techniqued Gaziv, and he dominated. He dominated for 4 rounds of that fight. And I think if Tai Tuivasa just tries to run at Jairzinho Rosenstruik, he's going to get put out. Like, I think that is a bad idea. And I think that's what he tries to do, honestly. But I don't think that's going to work against someone like Jairzinho. So I got him. I think he's going to find a finish here. Tai Tuivasa obviously has the power to finish anyone. 7,300 on DraftKings. I think it's a really good fight to go over on because I think both guys, if whoever wins, I think one of them finds a finish. So this is definitely a fight we call for violence, and I think we're going to get it here, JVC. What do you got?
Well, Jairzinho's weakness is obviously wrestling, and Tuivasa's not going to wrestle. Tuivasa doesn't have the credentials of an elite kickboxer like Jairzinho. I really think that Jairzinho will knock him out pretty quickly, but we've seen Tuivasa, step in there with elite kickboxers like Cyril Gane and put up a fucking fight. So, you never know with him. So I think in terms of DFS, especially down at the bottom, somebody with as much upside as he has, you were talking about those bottom 4 being dust. Tai Tuivasa is definitely live to get a fuck ton of points, but I just don't see it happening. I'm still playing him a lot, but I think Jairzinho is going to knock him out.
Yep. Tony, you want to go 3 for 3 here with Rosenstruik? Or are you on the other side, on the Bam Bam side?
I think we're going to see a shoey tonight. I think the shoe's coming out. He's got starched 4 in a row, but I actually like this. I won't talk much about stylistic matchups because I clearly know the least of us 3 about that shit. But I actually like this matchup for Tui against like a defensive type heavyweight big boy. I think he's just going to knock him out. I think he's in the price point makes it to where, again, I know I keep saying the same shit over and over, and I hate that. But you need dogs. Aguilar 7,200, Tui 73, Kai Kara 74. I'm just going to play these, but I actually think Tui is the best one as far as upside price. The bad part is if he loses, you're going to get like 0, which some of these other dogs won't.
You ain't first, you're last. The 0 don't matter.
Exactly. With the dogs, I like the upside, and I really do. Like, I'm going to bet Tui tonight. I think he wins. I think he wins in the first, too. I think he knocks his ass out.
The funny thing, too, is like we're talking about Tai Tuivasa, who lost the last 4. They were to Gane, Pavlovich, Volkov, Tybura. They're to pretty good fighters, whereas Rosenstruik, his last 4 are not those guys, right? They're lesser competition. Now, he has fought guys like Volkov and Blades and stuff like that. He's lost.
I think it's like not contract fight, but I don't know what the word. He's lost 4 in a row and looked bad against good fighters. I think he needs a good showing tonight, and I think it's just the time. If he doesn't do it tonight, who's his? I seen something on the show his not his boyfriend, but his business partner, Pedro, or whatever his name is. I saw something. He just retired, so it was kind of like he doesn't need the money, which always worries me. Is that true?
No, Tyson Pedro. Okay.
I could be saying something that's not true because I heard it on TV, but it's like basically he needs to win or he might just hang him up too.
I wouldn't be shocked if he hung him up if he lost this fight. That wouldn't shock me at all. So, but again, both these guys, Tui's definitely live. I agree with you there. So good fight for DFS. I think you want to be on this fight for DFS for sure.
Rosenstruik's like one that I'm going to for sure be way, way, way under if he's 30%. Part of it is because I like those guys at the top. I'm just not going to get that much in that range, but yeah.
Tuivasa's married to Pedro's sister.
Really? That's what it is? I knew it was something like that. I knew he wasn't. Yeah.
Tyler says that Tyson Pedro didn't retire. He was forced to because he was absolutely ass and no one wanted.
Either way, he retired, bro.
Same thing. He retired. They forced to or not. He
I didn't
retired.
say he was like a title contender when he retired. I just said he was retiring.
He was ass though, Tyson Pedro. That I agree with. All right, let's go to
knockouts.
Yeah. Let's go to a fun fight for me because I love Dan Hooker, 6,900. He's got the price tag. Dan Hooker is an absolute dog and warrior. And Tony knows I can't help myself.
I made fun of him, JBC.
Yeah, he can't.
Dude, every time anyone just goes in and fights hard, JSU just fucking loves them. Like, all they have to do is it doesn't matter how good. If they got hard, he loves them.
Bro, you break his arm and he's still coming at you. Like,
Tony
you drop
Ferguson
him, you
fight,
break his arm.
Yeah, he loves. I bet you love Tony Ferguson.
He loves him. He picks him every time.
Listen, I've watched Tony Ferguson his whole career. I love Tony Ferguson. Like, it's probably a downfall to me right now, but yes, I love Tony Ferguson. Dan Hooker's my type of fighter. He's never out of a fight. Like, you can put him down, he'll get back up. It's kind of like Gamrot's similar in a way. They're just different styles of fighters when it comes to wrestling, but Gamrot's kind of similar. You can catch him, he'll get up though and just get back to wrestling. Like, they kind of are similar in that way where they're both just tough as nails. But that Jalen Turner fight was just, for me, if you want to watch an absolute war, go watch the Dan Hooker Jalen Turner fight, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
The Poirier fight, man, with Dan Hooker and Poirier was so fucking crazy.
Oh, that was good too. That was really good too. But it's just to my point though. Like, Jalen Turner put him down, didn't put him out. He got back up. He just went right back to it. Like, the guy's just, so I think Gamrot, is Gamrot going to wrestle him? He's going to try and wrestle him to death. Of course he is. Can he win a round and a half? He's going to keep going. He's got that nonstop wrestling pressure. I think Dan Hooker, though, is good enough to find a way to win this fight, though. I like at plus 300 or whatever he is, plus 285. I also think the line is just a little too wide for me, and I got to bet Dan Hooker here in the spot. And 6,900 for DFS. He's definitely one of the best dogs down there just because he's by far the best fighter of all those dogs down there. Like, by far, Dan Hooker is the best fighter of any of the cheap shitters down there, 7,200 or cheaper in that range.
He's also fighting the much better fighter than those.
He's also fighting the much better fighter for sure, too. But either way, I'm going Dan Hooker. I get it. Gamrot, he's going to wrestle him to death, and I'm going to be lower on Gamrot too. I can definitely see Dan Hooker. Maybe he doesn't get 11 takedowns because that's Gamrot's path. Like, he needs 6+ takedowns, a bunch of control time, and even 6+ takedowns in 3 rounds. He might not get there at 9,300. That's how crazy it is. But he needs at least that, I think, because I don't think he gets a finish here. It's minus 295 over 2.5. I don't think this fight is getting finished on the Gamrot side. So that's my take. JVC, tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay, let me read off the last 4 wins for fucking Gamrot. Arman Tsarukyan, Jalen Turner, Rafael Fiziev, Rafael Dos Anjos. You think Dan Hooker is in league with, sure, he beat Jalen Turner. I don't think he's as good as Jalen Turner. Dan Hooker certainly isn't as good as fucking Tsarukyan and Fiziev. I got
the point to Tsarukyan because of course he's my Armenian brother. But when you match up someone with Tsarukyan, if you're trying to beat him, you have to match him up with someone who can counter wrestle him. There are not many people in the world that can counter wrestle Arman Tsarukyan. But guess what? He's fought 2 of them, Gamrot and Islam, right? He fought Islam, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how Tsarukyan loses. He's not losing to someone like Dan Hooker or Jalen Turner or Fiziev because he's that ultimate. But a someone who can offensively wrestle him and handle him grappling on the ground like Gamrot can, those are people that he will struggle with. So I'm not saying that I don't give Gamrot respect for winning that fight. He still gets respect, but I'm just saying I think there's a reason like that. Those are the fighters that Tsarukyan is susceptible to lose to, in my opinion. But I get your other point, which is he's beaten really good fighters. Do I think that Dan Hooker is as good talent-wise as Fiziev, Turner, Dos Anjos? Maybe not, but he beat Turner, and he didn't beat him off of skill alone. He beat him off of just straight guts, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, he's just tough. And so, no, I don't think he's the most talented guy. I think that's what I like most about him is he's not the most talented guy in the room, but he finds a way to be in fights, even if he, got his head, got dropped or something like that twice. Like, he can get back into a fight quick because he can do damage.
I just don't think his toughness is going to matter because he's just going to spend the whole fight on his back, and so I kind of hate the fight from a DFS perspective because I think, honestly, it could go to decision and Hooker could only score like 10, even if it goes to decision. And Gamrot might not score either. Like, I really don't like either one, like, much at all. I think it's going to be boring. I think Gamrot's going to score like 70. I'm going way under market. I mean, I've got Hooker. I've got Hooker a bit more, because like Tony said, I think a loser could be in the winning lineup. But other than that logic, I really don't like it at all.
Yeah, I'm with you on the DFS side. I'm going to be way under on Gamrot. Like, I think he scores between 75 and 85, which is not getting it done at that price tag in a decision. Tony, what do you got here with this fight? And what are you doing with Gamrot?
Yeah, it's tough because you have to play dogs. I think, Hooker, the only time he's fought guys like Gamrot, he lost in the first round both times to, who was it? Islam and Allen. I mean, both times wrestled him to the ground and first round losses. I can't see Hooker winning for sure. Like, I think he loses. So it's just a matter of how many can he score in a loss. If it's 10, like JBC said, you're probably in big trouble. If it's 30, though, like if you told me right now Hooker scores 30, I legit might lock him with those first two. Like,
yeah,
legitimate. But it's going to be tough to get 30, to JBC's point. Like, he's going to have to strike, and Gamrot's just going to take him down, I think, which that's the hard part of this slate. Like, it's not like totally insane if no dogs win to where one of these, like, even Reyes at 6,400, like if he gets 15 or something, it's just a weird card with the two favorites up top where I don't know, but Gamrot, I think Gamrot is a somewhat sneaky play too. I don't really agree with our ownerships on the site. I mean, Gamrot, we got Gamrot higher than the two
people
guys.
do blind take these wrestlers though.
They love the wrestlers. Everyone's afraid to get,
the 10s. In the 30s.
I don't know about 30, but I think mid.
I do, because everyone's afraid to. I think so, because I think everyone believes, like you guys just laid out, there's no way Dan Hooker is going to be able to stop these takedowns. And if everyone's afraid to lose to a wrestler, because when you just watch a guy just get takedown after takedown, he has like 10 takedowns and you have none of them, under on him, you're just sick. You're just sick because you lost. Like, the guy is going to be optimal. He's going to score like 120. So I think everyone's just afraid, and everyone knows Gamrot too. Like, he's not, like, everyone knows him.
Why is this fight
know
even
exactly
booked?
what he does.
Why is this fight even booked? Like, Gamrot's won, 7 of the last 8. His only loss was to Dariush. He has all those good wins. Why is he not? And he beats Tsarukyan. Why is he not the one fighting Islam? I don't get it.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I'm surprised he didn't get Islam. Again,
right,
like
I thought he was going to get Islam. Instead, he's fighting Dan Hooker. Like,
if you guys are serious about the 30, though, I might just even full fade him. Like,
I think that
no
is.
Way.
Yeah, right now, Gamrot, I've got like 10%. Like, I'm going really, really low.
When you literally see minus 750 to finish, minus 400 to finish, even Prates minus 120. And I know that Gamrot has more wrestling upside than some of those spots, but man, it's just such a dramatic finish difference.
Yeah.
So Gamrot, chin suspect. His chin isn't, he gets dropped, but he doesn't get finished, right? So it's a little different.
There's a huge difference between
he's tough. And the problem is when you get close to him, he's just gonna grab a leg. Like he's going to get dropped, and then he's just going to grab your leg as you try and run in. So you got to be like very careful about it. So
Hooker's path to winning is not knocking him out. Hooker's path to winning is leg kicking and staying at distance.
staying at distance, yeah, pretty much. And one thing Dan Hooker does like to do if they get in close is like those elbows and stuff. He can't do that type of, well, he could, but if he does that, he's probably getting grabbed and pulled to the ground. So he's got to be really careful about, how he attacks him for sure. All right, there we go. That's Hooker and Gamrot. Let's go to the last two fights on the card here. We got JBC's boy, Steve Erceg, back on the card here. 8,800 for Steve Erceg versus Kai Kara-France. 7,400 for Kai Kara-France back in our lives, coming off of obviously the two losses. He's coming off of Albazi and Moreno last time he's fought. First time this year for Kai Kara-France. Steve Erceg, obviously, the last time was against Pantoja, where he lost a very close decision to a wrestle heavy Pantoja. And a lot of people think, not me, but a lot of people think that he should have won. So it was an extremely close fight. I do think it was extremely close, but I think the edge was to Pantoja in the end. But Erceg showed a lot. Erceg showed that he is at the top of the division. Honestly, he just made some mistakes in that fight. I think Erceg could have easily won that fight going away if he didn't make some of those mistakes late in that fight and kind of give away the last round or so to Pantoja. So cleans those up, and now he gets Kai Kara-France. JBC, which side are you on for this fight? Because I know that you loved Steve Erceg last time against Pantoja. You almost were correct on that, too. It was very close.
I think that I'm on the opposite side here of where I was last time. I think that Kara-France is, I think Kara-France is the cleaner striker. And like Erceg obviously has more power and he's longer, but Kara-France I think is technically a lot better. And I think the fight stays on the feet, and I think that Kara-France wins a fairly, I'm not going to say boring. They're going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of punches thrown, but I don't think it's going to finish. And I think Kara-France will win a decision. So getting him at plus 150, I think, has some intrinsic value there.
Yeah, I do think it's one of those fights where you could say it should be a little closer than what it is. I don't know, though, if it stays on the feet the entire time, then I do agree with you. Kai Kara-France definitely has like a speed and striking advantage just overall. Erceg's grappling, though, is really, really good. And we just watched him against Pantoja kind of counter a lot of Pantoja's grappling, who we all know is elite in that area. And elite, obviously, got controlled a little wrestling, but he showed that he could still fight in that area with the best of the best. And I think Erceg's grappling could be the key for him to win. I think he needs to utilize his grappling in this fight, whereas last fight, he needed to stay standing, right, JBC? We didn't want him to grapple with Pantoja. We didn't want him to wrestle because he's not like a counter wrestler, right, who can counter Pantoja's wrestling. So we wanted him to stay on the feet. This is like the opposite of what we wanted last fight and now this fight. I think he needs to use his grappling. His striking's getting better, though. It's not Kai Kara-France level, I don't think, but it's definitely improving. And maybe it's improved even more since the Pantoja fight, which could be the case. I'm going to go Steve Erceg, but I do think it's because I think he gets his grappling going and utilizes that. And maybe he finds a finish. He's got really slick, submissions and grappling that are underrated, I think. But I've loved Steve Erceg ever since he came in to the UFC. I loved him in his first fight against Dvorak when he was a plus 300 dog or something like that. So I've always been a big fan of him. And I think he finds a way to get done. Tony, break the tie here, Erceg and Kai Kara-France.
Yeah, I was on Erceg last time against Pantoja. I felt like he should have won until he made the mistake in the last round. I don't feel like he should have won after it went to the cards, but I feel like he should have won before he just did the dumbest thing ever. But I've had this one bookmarked for a while. I like Kai Kara. I think it's a good matchup, and I really feel good about it too. That's why I like this card so much tonight, because I like these dogs a decent amount in that 7K range from Aguilar up to 8K. I like all those dogs a decent amount. So I think Erceg's really good. I just think this matchup's tough for him. And I'm going Kai Kara tonight.
Yeah, no, you're definitely. It helps that you've probably shipped the last 2 weekends, but it definitely sounds like your confidence is growing with your
I feel
MMA
good about this
picks.
card. Doesn't mean it'll always work out, but I feel really good about this card.
I totally agree with Tony that these dogs are all pretty live. I'm betting on like most of them.
Yeah. No, they're definitely good.
The
good
minute
dogs.
2 or 3 of these dogs come in, too, those top favorites look even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and when you look at it from the price range standpoint, it's like, I mean, Tai Tui, Car France, those are pretty good dogs. They have upside
really
paths.
hard to play the favorites in DFL, like because the top 2 favorites just skew all of those high 8K guys where it's really hard to click them. So if you're like on the fence, like this fight, maybe I'm on the fence. It's impossible to click Urseg if you're on the fence.
Yeah, I think Urseg's not a good DFS play.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's he
could get a knockout. He could. He's got the hands for it.
He could. I think he gets a submission, if anything, though. Like, I don't think he gets a knockout.
How's he going to score enough to be on the winner, though, is the key. I just don't see it.
He's going to score like 90 if he gets a finish. If he gets a finish.
Like, I could see him scoring like 70 in a win.
Yeah. No, that's the most likely because I think it goes to a decision most of the time. These guys fought.
MMA is so good, though, because like these guys are all 25, 30%, and it's just really hard for me to see him on the winner. It's just, I don't know. You just play the odds.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really good fight, though. Since you're on mute, I'll say it's going to be a really good fight.
Thank you for that, Big Hedge. Let's go to the last fight on the card. We got the main event, 5 rounds here. Israel Adesanya, 8,300 on DraftKings versus Dricus du Plessis, 7,900 on DraftKings for du Plessis here. I'll just start it off by saying that coming into betting the fight, and I know I talked to Tony a few days ago about this, I thought before I like watched anything, and I thought I was going to pick Izzy. I thought I was going to be on Izzy. I watched the fights, and I just tried to find reasons to pick Izzy, and I just couldn't find reasons. Everyone's point to picking Izzy is going to be his counter striking. Oh, he's more technical. Oh, du Plessis is sloppy. I know he's sloppy. He's been sloppy all these fights. Like that's kind of what he does. But the one thing that Izzy does not like is constant pressure. We saw it with Sean Strickland, just constant, in your face. He said he couldn't get away, like figure out the jab and stuff like that, but Strickland was in his face, and he just couldn't figure it out. Pereira, pressure. And I know he finished Pereira one of those fights, but that was kind of a fluke finish because I think Pereira thought
he was about to lose.
He had him
when
done.
He got it.
Yeah, and then just Izzy came out of nowhere. But my point is, those the fights he's losing, he can't handle the pressure. He can't outpoint fight you because Izzy wants to point fight you. He wants to dictate the fight. And I don't think Dricus is going to allow Izzy to just point fight him to death and win a 5-round point fight decision. Like, I think Dricus is going to get in his face. He's going to make it sloppy, right? Which that's not good for Izzy if that happens, because he's going to be going for takedowns. He's going to be throwing those big power punches, and he's just going to be constant pressure. And that, to me, I love Dricus here. The more I watched it, the more I was like selling myself on Dricus, trying to find ways to bet Izzy, and I couldn't do it. So I'm on the Dricus side, and I'm pretty confident on the Dricus side too. I put a big bet in on Dricus. Really like him here in this fight. I think the fight goes all 5 rounds. I don't think there's a finish in the fight, so I think it goes to decision. But I think it's a decision in where Dricus is just, like I said, constantly in Izzy's face, and Izzy just is annoyed by it. He just he can't figure out just that constant pressure. So, yeah, that's my take here. I'm going to be heavy on Dricus for betting and DFS. JVC, what say you?
So I was talking about this in the chat a little bit last night because somebody asked me why I was betting on Dricus. For one, Izzy is 35 years old. This is a guy that relies on quickness and dodging, and he's getting up there. And I think that the Strickland fight was less an anomaly and more just that's how he is now. You know, I think that's just the fighter that he is. So you're looking at a guy who is totally reliant on quickness, and he's getting older. And Dricus is only 30 years old. Dricus is a better wrestler. Dricus has an iron chin. Dricus, you know, I just don't see any path that Izzy stays off his back because his wrestling defense is still not good. Dricus can grapple him to death. There's pretty much no way to me that Izzy wins this fight unless he knocks him out, and I don't see Dricus getting fucking knocked out. So I think all the logic in the world points to Dricus. The lines move 45 cents toward Dricus. I'm betting huge on Dricus.
I love it. I love it. Tony, you want to make it 3 for 3 on Duplessis?
I mean, anyone that has followed our content knows how much I hate Izzy. I hate how he fights. I hate the point style. I love when he fights in main events, though, just because he still gets too much ownership, in my opinion. Even in that mid-range pricing, I mean, he still has to score something. Like, unless it's just totally random winner, like he still needs to get you in the 8Ks somewhere close to 100. And I just don't see that path. I agree with you guys. Like, I don't see him knocking him out. If he wins, I think it's a point style where he scores 8, even in a 5-rounder. I think he doesn't get to 100 in that style of a fight. So for DFS, I think it's very easy. I'm going to be super high on Duplessis. And betting wise, I'm going to be huge with you guys. So I think all three of us actually on the main event are kind of in agreement. I just make no case for Izzy outside of just pure hatred. He's a good trash talker. I like his trash talk. I like him more, like, as far as the shit talk than Duplessis, but
Duplessis. Oh, dude, the fucking line about the dog, though.
Bro, Duplessis had that dude crying, and for multiple reasons
crying.
By the end.
If you're crying, I'm not taking you in a main event. That's a rule too. I'm not taking criers.
Yeah, unless you're crying because, like, you see your family or something, and your kids. That's totally different. But when you cry because a man is like shit talking you and saying things about you,
cry. Yeah, if they're doing something to your wife or kid, yeah, you can cry. Like,
if
it's about a fight, you're not crying. Who was the other dude that cried recently that was embarrassing? Who was it?
Somebody got the shit beat out of him and started crying.
I'm not even talking UFC. Someone else cried. Like, everyone made fun. I can't remember. Someone in chat will remember who cried recently. Like a big name. I can't think of it. And we all made fun of him.
Like basketball.
I can't remember. Someone in chat will always remember this. Someone cried and we made fun of him. I can't remember who though.
All I can think about is Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, if Strickland, was it Strickland?
No, it wasn't
Scheffler.
It wasn't Scheffler. No. I wouldn't make fun of Scheffler because Scheffler was crying for his country, like he won gold. Yeah, I'm not making fun.
Yeah, that's different. That's what I'm talking about. There's different.
It was someone crying tears, just like Izzy did. I'll remember it. I just can't think of it right now.
Yeah. Well, either way, all three of us are on the Dricus side. We like him as a bet and a DFS play. Caleb Williams. Was it Caleb?
Uh-oh.
Did he cry?
Caleb, this was not the one
I feel like people would look at that as normal if Caleb Williams cried.
It was not the one I was talking about, but he did. They got their third loss at UFC and he cried. I do remember that.
Oh, to his mom. Yes, like in the stands, right?
That wasn't what I was talking about, but he did do that.
That was bad, yeah.
I forgot about the Greg. Some guy named Greg Swinehart? Question mark.
It could have been Greg Swinehart.
All right.
Wimby,
let's give our favorite.
You can't make fun of dudes like Wimby. Like, come on, Chad. The dude, he's playing for his country. You can't make fun of shit like that. He lost the gold medal game. You can't make fun of that.
I mean, that's pretty good.
It, but it's understandable.
Well, you can make fun of him losing, I guess. But
I love how I love how France's strategy. They started losing, and they eventually devolved into let's just play 4 scrubs and Wemby and see if that works, and it did.
And it kind of did.
Yeah.
And Gobert just sits on the bench.
Gobert and Fournier sat there and didn't play.
Yeah, Fournier was pissed.
Yeah, they're playing Gershon Yabusele.
Dude, Yabusele, when he dunked on LeBron James, that was like the craziest part of the entire game of like anything. And I swear to God, it's like that thing should still be all over the internet. That was insane that he dunked on LeBron James. Like, absolutely insane. All right, let's give our favorite play of the day and get out of here from a betting standpoint. JVC, what is your favorite bet of the night? If you just could only bet one tonight, who are you betting?
I know you like to give out the props, so I'm gonna go for a prop here.
Ooh.
I would say Drekus by submission.
Oh, that's what's the odds?
Let me check what it is.
You're gonna get me
that
if
would
it's
be like so good for theater.
Drekus by submission plus 650 on FanDuel.
Oh, you're getting me excited.
Rear naked choke, second round.
That will be pure poetry for watching.
Bro, if he subs Issy, that's gonna be so good. Oh God!
That's the only thing that could top when Izzy beat that dude and was humping him up the back.
Oh, if Drekus! Oh my God!
Who was that?
This interview is going to be amazing.
Was who was the one when Khabib subbed and he was like trying to fight him while he was still out or something like that? Who was the guy? Was that McGregor? I can't remember. Was it McGregor?
Yeah, no. He kept trying to fight McGregor after he subbed him.
Yeah, he kept trying to fight him. That's the one that like I think of.
And the referee had to be like, "Stop."
Yeah. No, they're like he wanted to keep going. Yeah. All right, I like that. That's a fun one. It's plus 600 on DraftKings right now. If you're looking at DraftKings Sportsbook, plus 600. Drekus by sub. Tony, you got a favorite bet here for the people? One bet?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like a lot of these dogs. It's not fun, but my favorite bet is Walker over Taffa. It's not like crazy odds. You guys are better at that stuff than me. It's just a simple bet, but I like Walker.
All right, you want a fun bet. This is a fun bet. Casey O'Neill, third round TKO, 25-1. That's a fun bet. If you want a fun bet, I'm going to put a little cheese on it just for fun. But I like a late finish for Casey O'Neill. So 25-1. You can find that on DraftKings.
25-1. What was it?
Casey O'Neill by KO TKO in round 3.
25-1. That's a nice price.
The round threes are always good.
Yeah, I like the
especially good sweat when you get to round 3 too.
Oh my God! So when we were at the event in Atlantic City, Weidman won. We poked him in the eye and then he knocked him out in round 3. I was sitting with somebody.
Yes.
I was sitting with somebody who had 50-1 Weidman knockout in round 3. And then they came out 2 fights later and overturned it and made it a technical decision. And they changed his bet to a fucking loss. He was so fucking
dude.
pissed.
I totally remember this because I remember this because I won because of that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Pissed. He was so pissed.
Technical decision. You love to see.
I had never seen that in my life. That they came out and changed it. That was all horseshit. It was horseshit.
Once a fight is like called on the sport, was it like on the sports book they paid out and then they pulled it back, right?
Yeah,
that's what happened, right?
Because it was while the card was still going on. Yeah,
right. Okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's crap. I don't like that, but I did win because of it, so I liked it for myself.
You should have withdrew all the money in that short little time frame.
Yeah, you should have. Nothing they could have done then, but. You're not thinking about that at that point. If you hit a 50-1, you're just thinking about like, oh man, what am I going to do tonight? Like you're not thinking about anything else. But guys, hope you enjoyed the show here. Hope you enjoyed the winners. Get over to runpuresports.com. If you're not a member, RPS15 is the promo code. We got preseason football today, MMA, baseball, NASCAR going, college football starting next week. We'll have college football package if anyone wants to sign up for that. And then obviously NFL is coming up in about 18 days, I think it is, something like that. So sign up now. RPS 15 gets 15% off your first month or weekly payment over at Run Pure Sports. For JBC, Big T, or Big Hedge, and myself, JSU. Again, good luck in all your contests. We'll see you guys hopefully in the Discord tonight. We're out. Peace.
Fuck you.